Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Parivrajagasatara Sarashishi Mad Jagakuru Siddhaswarupananda Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to the wandering mendicant, topmost one-light devotee, the great preceptor Jagakuru Siddhaswarupananda Srila Prabhupada, who's taken shelter at the feet of Vishnu Ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Vyasa Puja Ki Jai. All glories to the divine appearance day of our beloved spiritual master, Jagakuru Siddhaswarupananda Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Haribol, namaste. So, before speaking, first I'll offer my respectful obeisances under the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Siddhaswarupananda Paramahansa Niti Namine Namo Siddhaswarupananda Paramahansa Namine Gora Karuna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prastayate. Offer my respectful obeisances under the lotus feet of my spiritual master, who is very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada is the mercy manifestation of Lord Chaitanya, Gora Karuna Swarupaya. It is very dear to Radha and Krishna, Radha Krishna Prastayate. Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Panchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhaivacha patitanan pavenbhyo vaishnavbhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are like wish-fulfilling trees, able to fulfill all the desires of the fallen living entities, and are full of compassion upon them. And namaste. Haribol. So, I have here this, this is a bit of show and tell. When I first started chanting in New Zealand in, I think it was 1976. And so when Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was still present on the planet. And you know, unfortunately, he left this world, or left us, in November 1977. And then Srila Prabhupada came to New Zealand in January 1978. And you know, this was his first tour after the disappearance of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And so Srila Prabhupada, he came to New Zealand several times over the next few years, 1978, 1979. And anyway, we used to, at different places, and used to have Tooster's Farm, and then that was sold and then disposed of. Prabhupada didn't like the idea of, at that time, of like big ashrams. The problem was people became attached to the institution, to the property, and to the what was going on there, rather than actually being attached to the service of the spiritual master and to Krishna. And so anyway, so Srila Prabhupada didn't like the situation there. So as Prabhupada is, when he doesn't like something, he changes it. You know, so we're all like really committed to this ashram, this farm, a beautiful property, close to the ocean. It was quite cold though, very austere. But anyway, once Prabhupada makes up his mind, well, that's it. Okay, so that was sold, and off we went. Then Prabhupada started a newspaper, Haribol New Zealand, and he also started some in California and the Philippines, Haribol Philippines. Anyway, so then when he came back to New Zealand, he was, we were chanting in this hall, and anyway, as he was leaving, he used to play a sound box kind of thing with a drumstick. Anyway, as he was leaving, he threw the sound box up, someone grabbed that, and then he threw the drumstick, and I was able to catch it. So anyway, here's my Prabhupada Maha. So anyway, a little story. So anyway, today is the most auspicious day of the year for the disciples of the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. And, so it's the celebration of Srila Prabhupada's appearance in this world. And it's called Vyasa Puja. So Vyasa, of course, is the compiler of the Vedic literatures. Prior to the beginning of Kali Yuga, the Vedic literatures were passed down from spiritual master to disciple, passed down orally. So it was known as Shabda, or transcendental sound. And, but with the beginning of Kali Yuga, Srila Vyasa Deva compiled all the Vedic literature. And Srila Vyasa Deva is known as the literary incarnation of God. So this day is called Vyasa Puja, as it is the Srila Prabhupada is the bona fide representative of Srila Vyasa Deva. Is the representative, all being the beloved disciple of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is the bona fide representative of Srila Vyasa Deva. And so this day of the appearance of the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada is known as Vyasa Puja. It's the day that we glorify and remember and give thanks, express our gratitude to our beloved spiritual master, the representative of Srila Vyasa Deva. And so I was thinking, what I would speak on, and I've compiled a number of verses and quotes that I was going to speak on. But before I do that, I was thinking of, the many different reasons we had to be grateful to Srila Prabhupada. And so I made a list of things that I thought of. So Srila Prabhupada is, very unique, obviously, very unique and very special. And, he's taught us many things, of course, but very important point he taught during, just after the disappearance of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, even published a, what he called the HARIBOL special. And this was where the central idea is that the spiritual master is self-effulgent. The spiritual master is not appointed. He's never appointed. And, actually Prabhupada told the story of how when he was in India with his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada had received a letter from one of his godbrothers in Gaudiya Math, which was the institution of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. After the disappearance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in January 1936, actually on New Year's Day, unfortunately, the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta didn't follow his instructions, and it became like a massive dispute, a big conflict about who was going to take over running the institution, basically is what it became. And it ended up breaking into a dispute between two factions. And one day when Prabhupada was with Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada had received a letter from one of the people involved in this dispute. And the letter said something to the effect that, to avoid future disputes, he was going to appoint his son to be the future Acharya. And, Srila Prabhupada tells us that Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami was very upset, and he was saying, Acharya is never appointed, Acharya is never appointed, Acharya is never appointed. The Acharya is self-effulgent. He's full of love for Krishna. He's known as Guru. Guru means heavy laden with love for Krishna. And so you can't appoint a guru or an acharya and a teacher by example. So Prabhupada very strongly taught this point. You know, the guru is not an ecclesiastical post. It's like in the, you know, in the Catholic Church, there's the, you know, the Pope is appointed. They have like a, you know, a process of appointment. And it's very political. It's a totally political process. You have to get enough votes, you know, and so there's a lot of politicking and lobbying and deal making. You know, if you give me your vote, I'll do this. You know, this kind of thing goes on. And of course, in the Middle Ages, it was totally corrupt. But anyway, so the spiritual master is not an ecclesiastical appointment. It's not a position of enjoyment. It's not that the spiritual master takes on this position and then gets to exploit and dominate his disciples or followers and to enjoy the position of, you know, being worshipped or people offering obeisances or so on. And it's not a position from which to earn an income. So Prabhupada has very kindly taught us this very important point. I mean, it's extremely important because practically speaking, if you look at all the religious organizations or institutions throughout the world, it's all about appointment. It's all about ecclesiastical gurus. And so we've been very fortunate that Srila Prabhupada has so strongly taught this right from the very beginning. And so along with this, he's also taught that spiritual life is not declaring allegiance to or joining an organization. It's not about changing our dress or our hairstyle. Rather, he's made it so clear to us that spiritual life is the internal process of becoming self-realized and developing a loving relationship with the Supreme Person. So it's not something you can join. You know, Prabhupada's always very strongly made this point that it's not about joining an organization, or it's not about identifying as I'm a devotee, or I'm a member of the whatever organization. And Prabhupada's always very made this very clear. And you know, so again, we're very fortunate that Prabhupada has always made this so clear, because so many people feel that spiritual life or religion means to actually join an organization or declare your allegiance to a particular person. And you know, so Prabhupada's also been very unique in making the point that a spiritual life it's not about you know, declaring your allegiance to someone. That becomes a personality cult. If we all just declare our allegiance to Prabhupada, oh yes, I accept you, Srila Prabhupada, then this becomes like demigod worship or just declaring allegiance or a personality cult. So Prabhupada's not interested in a personality cult. You know, he's taking on the role of accepting disciples for the benefit of the disciples and for the pleasure of his spiritual master. He's not looking for declarations of allegiance or loyalty. So we're again very fortunate that Prabhupada is such a wonderful guru, heavy laden with love for Krishna, and most intolerant of you know, of our imperfections, and so always pointing out to us whatever shortcomings we may have, so we can take these instructions he gives us into our heart and mind and meditate upon them and advance in our spiritual understanding. And so, of course, these kind of teachings that I've been speaking of, you know, so Prabhupada saved us from the calamity that happened after Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada left this planet. You know, just as when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left, it ended up in all kinds of fighting and disputes. Similarly, the organization founded by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, similarly broke down into, a huge calamity where various people who had not appreciated that what that guru is self-effulgent, rather they took it that guru is a position of being able to dominate and exploit others, instead of seeing it as the spiritual master is actually the servant serving his spiritual master, and then trying to pass on the gift that he's received. Rather, they saw it as a position of enjoyment and domination, and began fighting about who got to be the guru of certain zones across the world. So this, this was most unfortunate, a real calamity that disrupted, the mission of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and interfered with so many people's lives in such a major way. But in any case, we're so fortunate that Srila Prabhupada, he saw this coming and he protected us from it. And so we can all be very grateful for our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, for his loving protection of us. So Prabhupada, he stresses the all importance of chanting the holy names. Chanting Krishna's holy names is what Srila Prabhupada stresses. And he says, like in different appearance days, he's making very clear, if you want to please me, then chant Krishna's holy names. So he's always stressing the importance of chanting, and that the rules and regulations are all secondary to the chanting of the holy names, and all the rules and regulations serve the chanting of the holy name. And Prabhupada has taught the science of identity, and the way that Prabhupada has analyzed the philosophy and recast it as the science of identity, that I'm spiritual in essence, that I'm not the supreme, that I'm the dominated part and parcel, so essence and position, and then function, that my function is to render loving service to the Supreme, to Krishna. This is a very simple and easy way to present the timeless teachings of the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy and the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam to the people in general. So this is it's actually very unique. Of course, it's not something new in that he's just representing the teachings in a very simple and easy way for people to understand. And so this is, a wonderful thing that Prabhupada has done. And then Prabhupada, he's also stressed the importance of preaching or teaching to or outreaching to those who don't know about Krishna. He's not been interested in trying to get people who are already chanted to somehow or other stop chanting with whoever they're chanting with and then become his followers. So he's, unfortunately many others have put their efforts into trying to get people who are already chanting to become members of their team or followers of them. So we've been very fortunate that, Prabhupada has, no interest in this. His interest is in giving the names of Krishna to the people of the world. And so his whole outreach mission has been developed with that in mind, of outreaching to the people of the world. So everything he's done is in a way that people can relate to, that make it easy for people to understand the way he presents the teachings, the way he goes about his mission is a way that the people in general can relate to and not feel intimidated by. So, and Prabhupada has always taught the importance of pleasing the spiritual master above everything. So by by pleasing the spiritual master and making our spiritual master's instructions our life and soul, then we're pleasing to Srila Prabhupada. And as Srila Prabhupada is the representative, the beloved representative of Krishna, then Krishna is pleased. And when Krishna is pleased, then we experience love for Krishna. So we should always make the instructions of our spiritual master our life and soul. So Prabhupada, the spiritual master, has two aspects. His what's known as Vapu, which is his personal presence. And so we can engage in the personal service of our spiritual master or have the personal association of our spiritual master. And then there is Vani, which is the spiritual master's instructions. And so we can serve the spiritual master in two ways. We can serve Prabhupada in two ways. Either we may be fortunate to have the opportunity to have his personal association and to engage in his personal service, or we have, no matter where we are, anywhere throughout the three worlds, we have the opportunity to serve his instructions. And the spiritual master has two kinds of instructions: his general instructions, which apply for everyone, and specific instructions. So the general instructions are like to chant Krishna's names, to chant japa in a focused and attentive manner, to follow the four regulated principles, to read and hear about Krishna and his pastimes, to study Bhagavad Gita, to listen to our spiritual master's lectures, and so on like this. And then specific instructions can be to do a certain thing. I've been very fortunate in my life. I've had a great number of specific instructions. And so we should, whether we've been fortunate to receive specific instructions or not, we're all receiving this Srila Prabhupada's general instructions. So we can all take the opportunity to, sorry, I've managed to mute myself. Okay, sorry about that. So anyway, so one time I was with Srila Prabhupada, and he was chastising me. And, I hadn't done something that he wanted me to do. And so anyway, so then he, he said to me, Mahabhagavat Das, the difference between yourself and myself, between me and him, was that, I'd failed to make the instructions of my spiritual master my life and soul, whereas Srila Prabhupada has made the instructions he'd received from Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada as his life and soul. And so anyway, we should all take to heart this comment of Srila Prabhupada, that we should make his instructions our life and soul. Everything else in life is temporary. It's all part of this material world, our job, our family relationships, our house, our car, our bank balance. All of it is temporary. So in that sense, it's false or illusory. But the instructions of our spiritual master are spiritual. They're eternal. They're like the lifeline that Prabhupada is throwing us. So he's throwing us a lifeline, and this lifeline is his general and specific instructions. And this lifeline, and of course the most important instruction, is to chant the holy names of Krishna. So he throws us this lifeline, and we have to grab hold of it. And so this lifeline of his instructions will actually, he can then pull us out of this material world. So we should greatly appreciate the opportunity that we have to follow his instructions, and we should make it our life and soul. So, being pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, it's like when you're pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, you can feel it. You can feel your connection with him, and you can feel your connection with Krishna. And, so many times, unfortunately, I've been displeasing to Prabhupada, and he's chastised me. And so in that situation, then you can totally feel your separation from Krishna and from Prabhupada. It's like, it's stunning. Actually, it's like, wow, even just a look or a word, or, you can just all of a sudden feel, because Prabhupada is displeased, suddenly you can feel a change in your very being, or I've experienced feeling a very change in my very being, like as soon as Prabhupada is displeased. And, and then sometimes he's like, very displeased, and then maybe this displeasure goes on for a number of days, and of course this is very painful. But then once the reprobate disciple myself surrenders at the feet of Srila Prabhupada, and all of a sudden he's pleased, and then everything is transformed. So from personal experience, I've had the opportunity to experience that, this connection between Srila Prabhupada and Krishna, and the connection between pleasing Srila Prabhupada and being pleasing to Krishna. So anyway, that was just a few sort of points I wanted to discuss about Srila Prabhupada and about his wonderful teachings and the example he has set for us, and how he has actually added so much to the Parampara, or the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So Srila Prabhupada is receiving from Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who received it from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who received it from his spiritual master, and so on, back to Krishna himself. It's like receiving a mango that's being passed down from a tree. And mangoes, as they're handled, they become sweeter. And actually Srila Shukadeva Goswami, Sukha means parrot. So as Srila Shukadeva Goswami passed on these teachings in the Srimad Bhagavatam, then they become sweeter. When a parrot pecks a mango, it becomes sweeter, and as a mango is handled, it becomes sweeter. So as Srila Prabhupada has passed on the teachings, the mango of the teachings that he received from Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, these have become sweeter. And so anyway, so we're very fortunate to have such a spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, who's passing on the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in such a simple and easy way. Look at us today. All we're doing is, watching Facebook and chanting. People are just chanting, and we're all just having a wonderful time, And it's just, this is Prabhupada's mercy upon us. He's showering his mercy upon us. So anyway, I'm going to speak now a little bit. I don't have that much more time, but anyway, I'll speak a little bit more on, how on this day of Vyasa Puja, we meditate and reflect upon the glories of Srila Prabhupada and the spiritual master. And we offer our obeisances to him, reflecting upon the first verse of the Mangala Charana prayers, which are recited before Bhagavad Gita classes. So if you look in the Bhagavad Gita in the introduction, the very first words in the introduction are Ama Gina Timarandasya, Gina Gina Shalakaya, Chaksurun militanyena tajmai shri guruve namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of transcendental knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So this is our position. You know, it's like we're wandering around in a dark night or in a dark room, and like it's so dark you can't see anything. There is nothing. And you're wandering around and you're like banging your knees on the furniture and tripping over and falling over, hurting yourself, getting bumps and scrapes and cutting yourself. And so this is our situation prior to coming in contact with our spiritual master. And then our spiritual master, he opens our eyes with the torch of transcendental knowledge. Well, sometimes it's described as a salve. It's like if you're, if you get some kind of weeping eye disease and you can't actually open your eyes because they're kind of stuck together. And so this transcendental knowledge that the spiritual master gives us is like a salve that we can apply to the eye, and it allows us to open our eyes, or a torch that casts light into the darkness. And it's known as jnana chaksusa, eyes of knowledge. So we receive eyes of knowledge. He opens up our eyes. And so we can reflect, on Vyasa Puja upon the fact that if it was not for the grace of our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, we would be lost in this material world. In the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya says to Srila Rupa Goswami, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasadi Paya Bhakti Lata Bija. According to their karma, all living entities are wandering throughout the entire universe. Some of them are being elevated to the upper planetary systems, and some are going down into the lower planetary systems. Out of many millions of wandering living entities, one who is very fortunate gets an opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. By the mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service. So the Bhakti Lata is the creeper of devotion. So the Bhakti Lata Bija is the seed of the creeper of devotion. So Brahmanda Brahmate. So Brahmanda is the universe. Brahmate is wandering. So we're like wandering throughout this universe according to our karma. So we engage in certain actions, and this creates a future body. And then when we're in that body, we engage in certain actions, and that creates another future body, and so on and so forth. So we're stuck on this wheel of samsara, the wheel of birth and death. And there are so many living entities, like an infinite number, ever expanding number of jiva atmas, living entities. And in his purport, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami says, out of many of these living entities, one who is actually fortunate, Bhagyavan, comes in contact with a bona fide spiritual master by Krishna's mercy. Krishna is situated in everyone's heart, and if one desires something, Krishna fulfills one's desire. So if we're wandering around in this universe and suddenly we're questioning, well, who am I and why am I here and why am I suffering? As Srila Sanatana Goswami, when he approached Lord Chaitanya, described, who am I? Why am I suffering from the threefold miseries? What is the purpose of life? Then Krishna, seeing this, he then puts us in contact with the bona fide spiritual master. Krishna, who is situated, Bhaktivedanta Swami continues, Krishna, who is situated in everyone's heart, gives him the chance to meet a bona fide spiritual master. This is called Guru Krishna Prasad. So Prasad is mercy. So by the mercy of Krishna, we receive the spiritual master. And by the mercy of the spiritual master, we receive Krishna. Krishna is prepared to bestow his mercy upon all living entities. And as soon as a living entity desires the Lord's mercy, the Lord immediately gives him an opportunity to meet a bona fide spiritual master. Such a fortunate person is fortified by both Krishna and the spiritual master. He is helped from within by Krishna and from without by the spiritual master. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says in his Sri Guru Vastakam, the Samsara Dhavan prayers, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. Samsara Dhavana Alalita Loka. So how does Srila Prabhupada, extinguish this blazing fire? In Lord Chaitanya's first prayer, which we've been discussing in my classes in Healing Chant 108, Lord Chaitanya glorifies the chanting of Krishna's holy names. He says, Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam, all glories to the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. And in this first verse of Lord Chaitanya's, he outlines 7 benefits of chanting Krishna's holy names. So the second benefit is Bhava Mahadavagni Navapanam, so extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. So this blazing fire of material existence and extinguishing which Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes in his first stanza or first verse of his Sri Guru Vastakam. Srila Prabhupada extinguishes this blazing fire of material existence in our life by giving us the holy names of Krishna, giving us transcendental knowledge, and giving us the holy names of Krishna. So and this is Prabhupada's request of us, if we want to make him happy, then chant Krishna's names. This is what he wants from us. So Srila Prabhupada is very kind and merciful upon us. All he wants from us is to chant Krishna's holy names. And as Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says in his second verse, Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nicha Gita. So chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Srila Prabhupada loves to see us chanting and dancing. So Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains the actual spiritual identity of the spiritual master in the first chapter of the Adi Lila of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says, I know that my spiritual master is a servitor of Sri Chaitanya. I know him also as a plenary manifestation of the Lord. So the spiritual master is servant Godhead. So in other words, he's the servitor of Sri Chaitanya, but at the same time he's the empowered representative of Krishna. So he's a manifestation of the Lord. The spiritual master is non-different from Krishna. Lord Krishna, in the form of the spiritual master, delivers his devotees. So the spiritual master is the mercy manifestation of Lord Chaitanya. Srila Prabhupada, in our prayer that Tusa Krishna Swami and Purushottam Das composed in Sanskrit prayer, Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahansa Namine Gora Karuna Swarupaya. Srila Prabhupada, you are the mercy manifestation of Lord Chaitanya. So he's the empowered representative of Lord Chaitanya. And so one should know the instructing spiritual master to be the personality of Krishna. Lord Krishna manifests himself as the super soul and as the greatest devotee of the Lord. So in the purport, Bhaktivedanta Swami states, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami states that the instructing spiritual master is a bona fide representative of Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna himself teaches us as the instructing spiritual master from within and without. From within, he teaches as Paramatma, our constant companion. And from without, he teaches from the Bhagavad Gita as the instructing spiritual master. So From within, the Lord Paramatma instructs us and points us towards Krishna, shows us his spiritual master, or his representative, the spiritual master. And then the spiritual master, acting as the external manifestation of the Lord in the heart, gives us instruction. So the final thing I'd like to say here, I want to refer to the discussion between Srila Sanatana Goswami and Srila Haridas Thakur, and this is in the Anchalila of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 4. So Sanatana Goswami replied, "O Haridas Thakur, who is equal to you? You are one of the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, you are the most fortunate. The mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for which he has descended as an incarnation, is to spread the importance of chanting the holy name of the Lord. Now, instead of personally doing so, he is spreading it through you." So Srila Prabhupada, Krishna is, rather than coming himself and spreading the chanting of the holy name and continuing on the mission that he began as Lord Chaitanya, he's empowering Srila Prabhupada, who is spreading this Shri Krishna Sankirtanam all over the world. As we've been watching today, Mexico, Russia, Ukraine, America, Australia, New Zealand, all throughout Europe. My dear sir, you are chanting the holy name 300 times daily and informing everyone of the importance of such chanting. Some behave very well, but do not preach the cult of Krishna consciousness, whereas others preach, but do not behave properly. You simultaneously perform both duties in relation to the holy name by your personal behavior and by your preaching. Therefore, you are the spiritual master of the entire world. So, Srila Prabhupada behaves very well and preaches. Therefore, he is Jagat Guru, the spiritual master of the entire world. So, Jaya Srila Prabhupada. So, thank you for listening, and I'll just chant for a few minutes before handing back to Ariane Dasi. Namah